G'day YouTube, Rob here, doing another video for you, doing an update, end of June update. Got a stack of Blu-rays to show today, just some pickups that I've got. I've been buying tons of titles recently. I won't sort of show them all, but I'll just sort of show the ones, well most of the ones that I've sort of watched for you. And then I'll make another video, I'm sure, at some point, showing the rest of the stuff I bought. Yeah, so the first one is an animated film, Pixar film, a very popular film that everyone raved on about. Wreck-It Ralph, which I did sort of watch in the cinema when it came out and absolutely loved it, like a lot of other people. It's a really great film, very, it's a bit, sort of different, I think, very sort of unique. Storytelling. I don't know if that's making me go too much into it, but it's, yeah, definitely a really good film, and one of Pixar's best. Another film that people have been raving on recently, which I haven't had a sort of a chance to watch yet, directed by Ang Lee, Love of Pie, the sort of gold cover, which is very, very shiny. I haven't sort of watched this one yet, but I have heard a lot of great things about it, and I got this for a really cheap price, so looking forward to watching that at some point. Next one is actually probably my favourite pickup of this month. I've got a steelbook of The Hobbit, Unexpected Journey, which is a fantastic film. Probably one of my favourite films, I think, of last year. I think it came out last year, didn't it? Late last year. This year, either one. Yeah, really cool, really nice sort of steelbook. Yeah, it's a really good film. I really did enjoy this one. Really sort of pleased to get this steelbook too. I got it for, I think it's used, but I got it for a really good, decent sort of price, and yeah, really happy to pick it up. Therefore, yeah, really good movie. I really did enjoy watching it in the cinema. Just, yeah, really good story and great visuals to it, and looking forward to sort of watching the other, I think the other two, isn't there? Coming out. So definitely, yeah, great to pick up that one, I thought. Okay, so the next two are actually sort of horror movies. First one here is actually a film that, yeah, I'm a bit embarrassed perhaps to say that I've never, I have sort of, I watched it once, I think, a long time ago, but can't remember all that much about it, but it is a very popular film, so people will be probably surprised that I haven't sort of watched it recently. Yeah, it's the remake, 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, I thought it was actually pretty good, I thought. Took me perhaps a little while perhaps to sort of just to get into it. Just the first sort of half an hour, it was a bit, I don't know, took me a little while to get into it. Anyway, and definitely the second sort of half of the film was, yeah, really, really good, and especially the last sort of 30 minutes of it, just really great sort of zombie action to it, and I really did enjoy it. It did sort of remind me a lot, well, I mean, a lot of, if you sort of watch, say, the Walking Dead TV show, and even the Walking Dead game that came out, I think, last year, the sort of the point and click game, there's a lot of sort of the characters and a lot of the events that sort of happen in this movie do actually sort of very similar to the ones that sort of do happen in the Walking Dead TV show, which I sort of found quite interesting. But yeah, I thought it was actually pretty good, really, good sort of zombie action, interesting sort of characters, and definitely the last half an hour is really great sort of action to it. So that was pretty good. Next film was actually a film I haven't sort of watched for quite a while, and I'm not sure if it's actually used as a new Blu-ray release or not, but I have sort of noticed a few people have been picking it up recently, so I think it might be a relatively new release. Talk about the first Child's Play movie, which I do remember being a very good movie. I think this would probably be one of the first, at least the first sort of 80s horror movie that I think I ever watched. I think it would have been perhaps in probably grade, I don't know, 2 or 3 or something. I remember one of my friends had a Chucky doll and sort of brought it to school one day, which I was really, really impressed with. Because I really wanted to know where he sort of got the doll from. I think it might have actually been his brother. I think it might have been his older brothers. But anyway, but yeah, this is, from what I remember, this is a really good film, and great sort of 80s movies to it. So looking forward to perhaps giving this one a rewatch at some point. I have sort of seen the other two, and I have sort of watched Bride of Chucky, or one of the sort of sequels or whatever it was, and that was a long time ago. But yeah, definitely looking forward to giving this one a rewatch, and because I have sort of seen other people pick it up as well, so they must be keen to watch it too. So that's that. Next one's actually I don't know if it's embarrassing to say that I bought this or not, but I've never sort of seen this film before, and it is a film that does sort of get talked about a fair bit, I think, or used to. Got Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan. Who was it? Tina Fey and Rachel McAdams. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen some before, but I did sort of watch it the other day, and I thought it wasn't too bad. I mean, it does remind me a lot of other films. Clueless, obviously, and 10 Things I Hate About You, and even the Freaks and Geeks TV show, and other one with Drew Barrymore, Never Been Kissed. So it's definitely not necessarily an original storyline. A lot of other movies have a very similar sort of premise to it. But I thought it was actually pretty good. Definitely had a bit of a sort of a comment on American culture, in that sort of the bad comment on how it's all about body image, and how we sort of young girls sort of watch definitely sort of showing that they need to be super thin and look pretty all the time, and how it's sort of a bit of a damaging thing, I think. So it's definitely got a bit of a sort of a vibe to that. I mean, I've always been a bit of a fan of Lindsay Lohan. I haven't necessarily sort of seen all of her films or follow her religiously type of thing, but I've seen a couple of films. I've seen the Herbie movies that she did, which I thought were pretty good. I remember watching one and thought that wasn't too bad. But yeah, that's sort of Mean Girls. Definitely wasn't quite as bad as I thought maybe it was going to be, but yeah, definitely a good film. Next one was actually a bit of a sort of a 90s classic film, which was a very popular film at the time, and I think even my friend at the time said this is probably one of his favourite movies of all time. I have sort of seen it. It would have been, I think it came out in 95, so I would have probably sort of seen it around that time, but I couldn't remember all that much about it, and really have sort of been wanting to pick it up for quite a while, and give it a rewatch, because it is supposed to be a bit of a classic. Got Kevin Smith's Mallrats, which I did sort of watch the other day, and I have to say it wasn't that particularly a great film. I don't think. I was actually quite surprised at how sort of it was a very sort of dated movie. I think a very in some ways a bit of a mess of a film, and there was not all that much of a storyline to it, and some of the acting wasn't particularly great. It was a very sort of 90s, Keanu Reeves type acting to it, I thought. But it's definitely in some ways it had some funny scenes to it, and definitely was some bits were alright, I thought, but overall I think you got to admit, it was not a particularly great film. I think it's just one of those sort of films that if you sort of watched it, in your teenage years when you're in the 90s, you'd be a film that you probably really would like, and some people watched this film hundreds of times, I think, because it was a very sort of popular film at the time. So I mean, if I had watched it, back in the day, quite a few times, I probably would be here today saying this is a really great film. But sort of watching it sort of for the reason, well, sorry, for the first time, but watching it again, sort of 10 years later or whatever, it's not particularly a great film, but in some ways it's sort of a fun film, I guess. Also stars finishing Michael Rooker, Merle from The Walking Dead TV show. He's sort of in it as well. He looks pretty young in this film. But I mean, it was, I don't know, perhaps I've been a bit hard on it, but I didn't think it was necessarily a great film, but I suppose in some ways a sort of a fun film, I guess. Has some, some people might like the characters in it and stuff like that. But yeah, Mallrats. Okay, next film. Actually, a film I had a lot of really terrible things about, and was really sort of put off from sort of picking it up. Got to the Bourne Legacy, which is sort of the fourth sort of Bourne movie. Now I'm a huge fan of the first three movies, Matt Damon movies. I also really do enjoy those movies. Some of my sort of favourite movies. I do sort of watch them have sort of watched them quite a few times. You know, I'm sort of a regular watcher of those. But I had terrible things about this, and so I wasn't too keen on picking it up. But I did sort of find it cheap on eBay and picked it up, and I'd say I was actually quite surprised. It was actually a really good movie. I was actually really surprised. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say out loud that I thought it was better than the first three, but I did sort of think that. But I definitely would say this is one of the sort of best films I've sort of seen in this particular genre for quite a while, which is, I don't know, a bit of a bold statement, I suppose, compared, you know, obviously going by other people's reaction to the film, and they reckon it was pretty terrible. I did sort of watch it a few weeks ago, so I can't necessarily remember all the storyline to it. And the storyline is a bit confusing, I think, which is one of the major complaints I think that some people have of the film. It stars Jeremy Renner, Rachel McWise, and Edward Norton. It's sort of set it's a bit of sort of a side story, sort of set at the same time as I think the third Bourne movie. So the events that sort of happen in that movie just sort of happens at the same time, type thing. And from what I sort of remember, it's sort of essentially, obviously, you know, Jeremy Renner, I forgot his name. This is obviously like an agent, pretty much very sort of similar to the Matt Damon's Bourne, but I think he's in a sort of different sort of program. So I think they sort of, because I think the Matt Damon character, he's sort of on the loose sort of thing. The creators of these programs sort of get a bit scared, and they think, well, we better shut down the program, sort of the Legacy program or whatever it is. I don't know if it's called the Legacy program, but anyway. They eventually sort of try to kill all the agents sort of thing in this program. But of course, you know, Jeremy, he sort of escapes and sort of fights for his life for the rest of the movie, type thing. He sort of takes these pills, which is sort of part of the program. So I think it's sort of these pills that sort of help him increase his intelligence, increase his agility, you know, type thing, to improve him as an agent. So he sort of, because the program's been stopped, basically he can't get these pills anymore. So he's got to also sort of try and, that's his main objective, to try and get these pills again so he can sort of survive, you know, type thing, because he's not quite sure what will happen if he doesn't take these pills. I think he might lose intelligence anyway, might lose his power, sort of type thing. But yeah, I just thought this was a really good film. I was really quite surprised with it, and just thought it was really, really good. I'll probably have to watch it again to perhaps give it a bit more of a better review of it. But I definitely thought it was, yeah, really good, I thought. The next film is actually from 1968, starring Steve McQueen, Bullitt. I've sort of been wanting to sort of pick up a few of Steve McQueen's movies. I haven't sort of seen, a lot of people, you know, do say he's a really great actor, and you know, some people say he's like, you know, their favourite actor type thing. So I've sort of been wanting to pick up a few of his films. I found this one sort of cheap, just on Amazon, and picked it up. I think it's actually, I have heard, if you sort of watched, was it the Porn Stars TV show? I think one of the guys on there, this is supposed to be his favourite movie, but anyway, there's a bit of trivia there for you. I watched this one sort of last night, and I think I did actually quite enjoy it overall. I mean, it was very much a typical, you know, sort of 60s, 70s movie, just a very sort of slow burning movie. Some people said it's a very boring movie, but I didn't necessarily say it was boring, I suppose. But it did sort of take a little while for perhaps to sort of get into it. It was a bit confusing at the start, and not really quite sure what's happening, which I think it does sort of explain at the end. What is sort of happening at the start, but it is a bit confusing to sort of start off with, and it's a very sort of slow burning type movie, and a film that you probably could have cut out half an hour of it, sort of thing, if you trimmed some of the scenes down, type thing. But I mean, that would sort of some way sort of take away from the film, I think, if you sort of did that. I didn't sort of necessarily mind some of the sort of long sort of scenes in it, and in depth scenes, sort of thing. I mean, you got Steve McQueen sort of plays like a police officer type thing, and he's protecting. He's sort of, you know, his job is sort of to babysit a guy that's sort of is going to go to trial and sort of what's the word? Testify against the mob type thing. So Steve McQueen's job to sort of protect him for 24 hours or whatever it is till till he can go to court and testify type thing. There's sort of a lot of sort of police and investigation type thing, which is some of those scenes are quite long. But essentially, because obviously the witness gets murdered, so then Steve McQueen sort of spends the rest of the movie trying to hunt down the killers and find out what really happened. Type thing. I don't want to spoil too much of it. But I thought it was actually really good. Bit sort of slow, perhaps. Not necessarily sort of a fan of sort of slow movies, then you probably won't necessarily like it. But I thought it was pretty good. Got a few stars on it. Obviously, Steve McQueen. Who was in it? Robert Vaughn. Who's the other one? Robert Vaughn. Robert Duvall. Also Jacqueline Biscuit, which sort of plays Steve McQueen's sort of love interest. I don't know, I didn't sort of mind her character. I don't think she was really given that much time on screen though, really. Her character was a bit sort of underdeveloped, and she did sort of give a bit of a terrible sort of monologue in one of the scenes. That was particularly a particularly great scene. Very, I mean, it was. I think her character was obviously the sort of the other side of Steve McQueen's character, sort of so you sort of got the tough, gruff sort of policeman type thing, and I think her sort of side was supposed to be a bit more softer and bring him I don't know, in some ways back to reality type thing, back to it's not all blood and guts type thing, and but I don't think her character was necessarily given enough time to sort of show that, to sort of show this other side, So I don't think her character was particularly effective, but I don't think it was necessarily her fault. I think it was just, her scenes were a bit too short, I think, for what that could have been. But anyway, I'm rambling on a bit. But definitely, I thought it was a good movie. Definitely worth checking out. The next film is actually a film that I sort of heard sort of mixed things about, and I did sort of want to watch it, but I just had been sort of put off by some people's reviews of it. But it does star Michael Caine, so he always makes good movies. So I thought I would. I've always wanted to sort of see it, just basically just because he was in it, sort of thing. But I did sort of watch another guy here, Half the Mic. He's another sort of YouTuber, and he does sort of do movie reviews from time to time. He really did like it, so I thought I'd track it down and give it a watch. Movie's called Harry Brown, which comes in this sort of interesting case. That's the normal sort of cover to it. I think it came out a few years ago, and it just said 4 stars, Michael Caine. It says on the front here that it's the UK's answer to Gran Torino. Don't necessarily agree with. I think Gran Torino was definitely like a Disney film, I think, compared to this one. This is a very sort of violent movie, this one. But yeah, I thought it was a really good film. I was actually really surprised. I thought it was a fantastic film. A very sort of gritty. Essentially, you got Michael Caine. He's like a retired Marine. Many years ago, he was a Marine. He sort of retired, and he sort of lives in this the estate, sort of the big sort of tall sort of estate buildings where they've sort of got tiny apartments, and it's very for the poor basically. He's in this sort of poor apartment, and basically sort of run by drug dealers and murderers and the youth of today type thing. And his friend, another old man, he sort of dies. He sort of gets killed by the gang. This druggy gang type thing, and so Michael Caine sort of goes on a bit of a revenge trip type thing to sort of hunt them down and to sort of kill them sort of thing. But yeah, just very violent, and I just thought it was a really great film. I thought it's a really very sort of intense scene, especially the opening scene was really I found that really a bit hard to watch, and in some ways even made me feel a bit sick. I think the very opening scene. If you've seen the film, you'll probably know what I mean. Or just for me, I found it a bit sickly. Very violent. But yeah, great performances. Really like the storyline to it, and Yeah, a great sort of revenge flick. I don't know what to say about it really. Just yeah, very very violent and I mean not necessarily full on violent the whole time and stuff. It's very just sort of a little film and sort of some just great sort of scenes to it. I thought, but definitely a great sort of film. Okay, last of all, actually another sort of steelbook which I just sort of picked up. I sort of found this in a local shop. The sort of the little sort of Tron sort of car. So what do you want to call it? It does make a noise if you press a button. So yeah, I got that. And because I sort of found that, I thought I might pick up the movie. So I picked up the steelbook Tron, which I think came out a few years ago. It's actually embossed. It's actually not a bad steelbook, this one actually. It does have a few scuff marks on it though. I think I bought it second hand. I haven't sort of seen this one. I did sort of watch the original one a long time ago, probably 10 years ago or something, and because I had sort of heard it was a bit of a classic, science fiction classic, and to be honest, I didn't think it was all that great from what I remember. But I'm looking forward to watch it. I did sort of pop this in for skipped a few of the chapters, and it does look pretty good on Blu-ray, and did look quite interesting. So looking forward to giving that a bit of a watch, and got this for another good sort of price. So I picked it up, and but definitely nice and boss cover to it, and it's pretty much no artwork inside, or the back's just black, but the front cover's pretty decent though. Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, so that's my update. Just a few things that I bought, a few nice titles there, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you've seen any of these films, definitely leave me a comment and tell me your thoughts on them. Give me a thumbs up if you want. And yeah, till next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later on. Bye. End of June update. Take one. Hey YouTube, Rob again. I think I might change that. G'day YouTube. G'day Australia. G'day YouTube. Righto. Hi. Hanging out.